hangs over the river like a wet blanket, and the air shivers above the mud flats. The reeds whisper in a small wind. On the far bank, a herd of cattle moves slowly, their bells clinking like small, careless clocks. Near the water, under the shade of a twisted fig, the pride rests. Adults doze with full bellies. Cubs tumble over one another, mouths rimmed in dust. The river is part of the pride's life, a place for water, for salt, for smell, and also a place of rules the land animals learn slowly. The lion cub's name is Jabari. He is a small ball of hope and mischief, bright eyes, soft paws, and a courage that does not yet know its limits. He paddles at the edge, nose close to the surface, fascinated by his own reflection. The muddy water shows him only a flicker, a smaller lion, brave and lovely, but thin and small compared to what he imagines himself to be. On the opposite bank, a shaggy dog from a nearby homestead has followed the cattle's trail and pauses at the water's edge. The dog, lean and smart, has learned the ways of men and animals. He knows when to bark and when to watch. He drinks, then sits, ears up, eyes sweeping the plain. He is not part of the wild family, but he moves at the border of two worlds, human and wild, and sometimes boundaries blur. Jabari edges closer to the water. His small paw splashes and sends little concentric rings across the brown surface. A fish flicks away. A dragonfly quivers. His focus narrows to the glitter. He does not see the root that sits just under the mud. He does not notice the way the bank has been eaten by a passing hippo last week, leaving a thin lip that can give under the weight of a small body. The dog watches. It is curiosity and caution that holds him at the water. He learns more from smell than from sight. He tastes the river in the air and reads the footsteps in the sand. He notices the cub's movements, playful, blind to danger, a small figure inviting trouble by the simple act of being curious. Jabari takes one step, then another. He leans too far over the mirror, claws slipping on slimy rock. The mud gives. His back paw loses grip. He falls forward with a small, surprised yelp. Water closes over his head, a shock of cold that the sun cannot warm. The current tugs at his small body. Panic is an animal that wakes fast. The cub splashes, legs pumping, but the water is deeper than his shoulder height. He thrusts forward with a child's frantic energy. For a moment, he is flailing alone, a tiny sound in a wide place. The pride lifts at once. Heads turn, nostrils flare, bodies coiled. Mala, the pride matriarch, bounds to the bank with all the long force of her adult legs. Sons leap, tails straight like command flags. Lionesses push through reeds, claws bright in sun. The river answers with a new sound, a rush that swallows small cries, but the bank is slick and soft. Claws skitter, roots tear at fur. The lions may have teeth and muscle, but the river has leverage, and for a moment, the pride is a chorus of helplessness. They hurl themselves down to the edge. One slides on mud and cannot gain purchase. Another lands with a thud only to find their weight slides them back. Mala reaches and snarls, the muscles of her neck straining. She leans as far as she can, jaws open, but the gap remains just a little too wide for her reach. On the opposite bank, the dog has already moved. His world is a quick-moving thing. People, tools, warnings. But this is not a human child. It is a cub. The dog's sense of guardianship is an old, practical thing. Without thinking of beasts and rules, he runs along the shallow edge, footing sure on the small stones and firm mud. He jumps and grabs a reed with his teeth, bites and tugs. He dives into a shallower channel where the current is less mean. He is smaller than the lions, but quicker in the shallow water. He reaches the cub and clamps onto the scruff of Jabari's neck, the way dogs have always held small animals when they mean to help. Jabari squeals, but the dog's jaw is steadied at the far bank. The pride roars, an ocean of urgency and terror. Mala twists, claws raking the mud, and finds herself a moment longer than she wants. The dog does not know the rules of the pride. He does not respect boundaries. He does not wear the same codes. He only knows a small thing. Something much younger than him is drowning, and he will not watch it die. The dog pulls. He drags Jabari toward a sandbar where the mud is firm. The cub fights, confused and wet, claws scrabbling. The dog keeps hold, muscles tight, eyes fierce. The current tries to take them both. The dog bites again, closes his mouth on softer fur and heaves his shoulders. He scrapes along stone and root. Suddenly, with an animal sound that is equal parts relief and pain, he tosses himself and Jabari onto firm ground. The cub rolls free and lies on his side, coughing and gulping in air that tastes like survival. Mala collapses beside them, breath hot, eyes bright with fire. She snaps at the dog, a line of sharp warning and gratitude mixed in a single sound. The dog flinches at the lioness' teeth and the weight of her presence, but she does not kill. Instead, Mala plants herself above the cub and the dog, tail flicking like a judge's gavel. She sniffs the dog, an odd gesture, quick and full of meaning, and then turns to Jabari. Her tongue is rough and immediate. She grooms the wet fur from him, easing the river from his ears and closing the space the water left in him. The pride settles around them like a circle. Sons nudge the dog with their heads and push him gently away with long snouts. Not cruelly, but carefully, as if to place him at a respectful distance. The dog sits back, chest heaving, wise and small and proud. He looks to the cattle beyond the river, to the human world he knows, and then back to the lions. For a long moment, the animals regard one another as if measuring what has happened. The dog bows his head, a quiet acknowledgement. The lions hiss low, a sound like permission and like warning. They have accepted that a small life was saved by an unlikely hand. Word will travel the savannah in tongues of smell and in strides across the grass. The lion pride will teach their cubs many things that day. They will teach them to watch roots. They will teach them to respect the mirror of water. They will teach them that help can come from strange places. Jabari learns not only the shape of his limits, but the shape of gratitude. Even when he grows into a lion whose roar can stop a herd, he will remember the wet body of a dog who did not hesitate. Time moves as it always does. The cub grows. He runs, teeth flash white as new stars. Mala is older now, a little slower, the edges of her shoulders threaded with scar. Sons rise and fall in strength. The dog returns often to the river, sometimes with cattle, sometimes alone, but always with an eye toward the pride's place in the shade. The lions do not let him come too close. Pride has rules. Yet now and then, when the cubs play and the adult lions sleep, the dog sits near the water and watches them with a watchfulness that is both neighbor and friend. The river keeps its own counsel. Hippos slide like small mountains in the deeper pools, and crocodiles still lie with eyes above the surface. People move their herds across the shallow ford at dusk. The danger is always present, packaged in ordinary things. A broken root, a child's curiosity, a sudden drop in the bank. But the story of a dog and a lion cub becomes a small lore, told when nights are long and shared around the slow heat of a campfire with people who watch and with predators who do not speak the same language but understand the meaning. The pride adapts. They teach their cubs to drink in groups, to approach the water where roots make steps, and to be mindful of minor currents that look harmless but are sharp in their teeth. The cubs learn to listen for small sounds that warn of big dangers. The low snort of a hippo disturbed in its wallow, the subtle ripple that slides across murky water when a reptile moves. Jabari grows into a lion who knows the difference between bravado and wisdom, between boldness and foolishness. Yet nature is not a place where one event ends and soft peace settles in. The wild is a layered place of cycles and repetition. Months later, a dry season comes hard. The river thins to a stubborn thread and the banks crack with thin skin. The pride is hungry in a way that colorless days do not easily soothe. The homestead dogs are fewer, and the cattle cross more often, pushed by the hands of men. Tensions rise. One evening, a terrible thing happens. A hyena finds a den the pride thought empty. In the chaos, a small cub, not Jabari this time, but one of the younger ones, is separated. The river lies between the cub and safety. Night makes the world a quick shadow, and the river seems darker and meaner. The pride charges and roars. The dog, who has watched their seasons like a weathered neighbor, hears the alarm. He races across the shallow ford once more, eyes flaming with the memory of one rescue and with the simple rule that guided him that first day: help the small. This time the water is lower and faster. The dog runs down the bank and finds the cub clinging to a reed. The cub is thin and trembling. The dog bites gently at its scruff and pulls. The cub slips. The dog tugs and drags and scrabbles along stones. At the same moment, the pride leaps from the opposite bank with a thunder that shakes the reed stems. They crash toward the dog and the cub, claws and jaws and muscle. Mala reaches and scoops up the child as the dog drags them both across a final slick patch of mud. Again, the river gives up its prize. When the dust settles and the moon comes out to watch, the pride gathers around the dog. They do not bite him. They do not chase him. Instead, they sing low and raw, a voice that is both a thank you and a bond. The dog sits among them now as he once did, not a member, but certainly a witness to something older and truer. The lions have learned to read the dog's timing. The dog has learned to read the lion's limits. A pattern forms, a fragile alliance written in small rescues and in the memory of shared crises. People come and go. Some villagers tell the tale of the dog who saved lion cubs and are met with laughter, as if such stories belong to fables and not to the raw, dangerous face of the wild. But the story travels nonetheless. Rangers hear of it. A local guide tells tourists who arrive at the river at slow dawns with cameras and binoculars. They look, expecting spectacle, and sometimes they are rewarded. A dog nosing near the bank, a cub batting a reed with a paw, a lioness nose turning like a clock toward her young. The cameras click. The story becomes a small, bright legend. Jabari grows into a lion whose stride is sure. He remembers the dog's teeth on his scruff and the pride's mouth around his chest. He remembers the river's cold and the heat of his mother's breath. He grows into the kind of lion that stands at the edge of the water and knows exactly how far to step. He becomes a leader who teaches his own cubs the same lessons his mother taught him. Watch the roots, watch the bank, respect the water, respect those who might help. He tells his young of the dog, in a lion's way, with pointed nudges, with patient patience, with the occasional soft grunt that means this is how it was. Years pass. The homestead changes hands. New dogs come, and old ones die. The river changes course in small, stubborn ways. But a thread remains. The knowledge that help sometimes comes from the least expected place. The pride becomes less a closed circle and more a community in the sense that families anywhere are made of small alliances and unexpected rescues. One morning, when Jabari has cubs of his own, he sits on the bank and watches a new dog crossing the ford with a baby in tow. The dog is older, steadier, and its eyes have the same steady light as the one who first saved him. Jabari gives a long, low rumble, a sound of recognition. The dog pauses, ears up, and then sits at a careful distance. For a moment, the old lesson returns. Look for help even where rules are rigid. Show gratitude when it is owed. And teach your young that survival often needs more than muscle. The river continues its slow, moving life. Hippos grunt. Crocodiles slide. Men cross with their herds, and the loud noises of trucks sometimes roll across the plains. The wild shifts and keeps shifting. But the story of a dog that pulled a small lion from drowning becomes stitched into local memory. It becomes a lesson told to children. Be brave, but be wise. Kindness crosses boundaries. Help can come from where you least expect it. In the end, the story rests on a simple truth. The world is a place of many powers. Strength belongs to many forms. Muscle, cunning, timing, and habit. A dog may be small and living between human and wild life, but in a single act he can change the course of a life. A pride of lions may be fearsome, but even they must sometimes accept help. The river remains a wild teacher, stern and patient, and the banks hold the marks of many lessons learned. Jabari's cubs grow, play, learn to fight and to be patient, and sometimes they watch the dog at the water. They will one day tell their own small ones the tale of sharp teeth and sharp luck. The dog will be remembered not as a hero who wanted praise, but as a neighbor who did what needed doing. He made a choice and acted, and so the life at the river goes on, a tapestry of risk and rescue, of hunger and mercy. When the sun leans low and the water catches its last gold, the pride gathers, the dog sits a respectful distance, and the world breathes in a long, slow sigh. A cub curls against its mother, dreaming of running and hunting. The dog licks its own paws and watches the sky. The lions and the dog share a quiet, unspoken pact that for a small life, they will sometimes cross the border between wild and household, between fear and help. There is nothing tidy about it. There is nothing audience-friendly in the wild's ways. But there is truth. Borders blur when lives hang in balance, and unlikely hands can become the ones that save the day. The pride remembers. The dog remembers. The river remembers, too, with its stones and reeds and the small, deep channels that carry old stories downstream. Music, go together. Return together. Keep the small ones close. And when the water looks calm and the bank looks safe, remember that courage sometimes comes wearing a collar, and that love, in the end, is a force that cares more about life than about territory.